Good evening. Sagarmanthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue. This is a initiative of Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways, Government of India, and this is being organized jointly along with ORF. A very warm welcome to the second edition of Sagarmanthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue. This dialogue is being held alongside the ministry's flagship initiative, which is the India Maritime Week. I see a lot of familiar faces. We were together in the morning in the inaugural of India Maritime Week by the Honorable Home Minister. This is one of the largest maritime gatherings with more than 1.5 lakh delegates and visitors spread across the week. And there is participation from more than 85 countries, and 350 plus eminent global speakers are speaking on this occasion. With 9 flagship sessions, 100 technical dialogues and multiple concurrent events, IMW 2025 is showcasing India's leadership in shaping the future of global maritime trade and the blue economy. Sagarmanthan, what started as an effort to bring together global policymakers, industry leaders, and scholars to deliberate on the unfolding opportunities of the oceans, has, in just 1 year, emerged as one of the most important platforms to voice global aspirations for our shared blue future. This year, we have brought together 1,800 participants from over 65 countries for this dialogue. This is a testament to the promise of India as a hub shaping global maritime thinking, and to the recognition of Sagarmanthan as a platform for meaningful engagement. India's maritime geography, its long coastline, vast waterways, and pivotal location in the Indian Ocean offers us a unique opportunity to drive global maritime growth. Under the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, the long-term vision is ambitious: to increase the share of seaborne trade in India's logistics from 10% to 30% of the global seaborne trade by 2047. So this would also necessitate expanding the port capacity in the country by 4-fold so that we are able to meet the needs of a growing economy. And this opens up a large opportunity for all of us to participate. To realize this vision, Government is advancing both policy and investments. Very recently, Government of India approved a financing package of nearly 70,000 crores for catalyzing private participation in shipbuilding, port infrastructure, and green shipping. At the same time, a project pipeline worth over 1 lakh crore is underway, especially in the port sector, ranging from major port terminals in Vadhavan, which is in the state of Maharashtra, Tuna Tekra, which is in Gujarat, Paradeep and Tuticorin ports, so as to enable the expansion of the port capacity. And apart from this, India is also embarking on a shipping fleet expansion with more than 400 vessel acquisition planned over the next few years. Together, these efforts reflect India's commitment to building a modern, sustainable and globally competitive maritime sector, one that invites partnerships and create opportunities for co-investment. A shift in policy requires a preface of ideas. After all, new ideas give birth to pathways of action. Sagarmanthan is a crucial platform for fostering such ideas, enabling India to emerge as a driving architect of the future of maritime trade, connectivity, and sustainability. Last year, we focused on connectivity, geoeconomics, technological innovation, and governance. This year, we return with a larger mandate, exploring how maritime cities are transforming into hubs of technology and digital connectivity, emphasizing the welfare of coastal communities as we build a sustainable blue economy, and strengthening shipbuilding and green shipping as a part of resilient rules-based maritime order. Over the next 2 days, we will deliberate and rethink our outlook on the oceans. This dialogue is about advancing global maritime policy and ensuring that India is at the heart of this discourse. A very warm welcome to Sagarmanthan once again. I wish everyone the very best and hope that we return with a fresh set of ideas to co-create, co-invest, and co-lead in shaping our collective maritime future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite the speakers for our inaugural plenary session, Shaping the Future of Global Logistics, Building Resilient, Smart and Sustainable Supply Chains. May I please welcome on stage His Excellency Robert Tiemann, Minister of Infrastructure and Water Management, Netherlands, Her Excellency Marianne Sebastian Ness, Minister of Fisheries and Ocean Policy, Norway, Ms. Johanna Christensen, Chief Executive Officer, Global Maritime Forum, His Excellency Anurag Karunathalika, Minister of Ports and Civil Aviation, Sri Lanka. The session will be moderated by Dr. Samir Saran, President, Observer Research Foundation. Sir, over to you.
No, I just didn't want to get the speakers wrong. So, thank you, Anusha, and thank you to the Joint Secretary for the opening addresses which set the stage for this session. By way of teeing off this discussion this evening, let me just recount a conversation we had in New York this time at the UN. And I heard someone very wise say that irrespective of everything that's happening around us, trade is resilient. Trade finds its own path and it finds its partnerships. And leadership is about building the pipelines to make that flow more easily, to benefit more people, to serve the planet in a sustainable manner, and of course to create value for those who depend on the seas and oceans. So in some sense, it's not the trade that we really need to be bothered about, because businesses have functioned over the years across all sorts of conditions. It's really the directions of that trade so that they really can create value for a much larger community. And to do that, I think infrastructure and logistics become crucial. Supply chains are vital. And of course, sustainable pathways for building all of this become essential. And I hope over the course of this panel we can discuss a few important drivers of these logistical and trade changes. One of them, of course, being technology, and how is that disrupting how we organize ourselves in this arena. The blue economy, we heard about that in the opening addresses, and can we create a sustainable economic proposition that benefits industry but benefits people. And of course, in a world where everything is being reset, and there are no past precedents anymore for the future, what are the kind of new partnerships, new arrangements, new formats that could serve all of us in the days ahead? And maybe I would break with protocol and I would turn to the only non-minister on the panel to kick off the discussions. So you are in luck, Johanna. I'm going to turn to you first. And maybe I could ask you in one simple line, in your view, as someone who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Maritime Forum based out of Denmark, my line would be, what is happening? What are the big trends, big developments, big changes that all of us need to be assessing more accurately?
Well, thank you very much. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I feel a little self-conscious getting that first question, because it's, first of all, it's a very complex question with potentially a complex answer. And one thing that I would say is something that we've seen in recent years is that while it is true that trade is resilient and that trade will continue to flow, and sometimes I think about it a little bit like water, it will find a way. Nevertheless, the maritime sector and shipping and logistics is still extremely exposed to the kinds of shifting geopolitics, trade turmoil, and frankly, a breakdown in the rules-based order that we've seen, a really straining of multilateralism that we've been experiencing over the past year or so. But of course, these trends go further back, and these risks are incredibly heightened in the sector. I think another element that we've seen is that that shipping and logistics has become high politics in many ways. It's become something that has come to the attention as supply chains strained and sometimes broke down during the COVID years. More and more nations are looking to seaborne trade as a critical lifeline, and one that they don't want to leave up to the whims of others. And thus there's a greater degree of investment and focus on how to become self-reliant, and that has, frankly, the maritime sector, shipping in particular, is highly entrepreneurial. It has a high risk tolerance. It has movable assets, which can easily shift to meet changing needs. But where I worry is very much more on the land-based side of things, on the infrastructure needs that need to be met, and that those are moving with the times. And that's evident here in India as well. India, as I think these days the world's 4th largest economy, and which has, I think, where the Indian government has done a tremendous job of outlining where the future is, but has its infrastructure, especially its maritime infrastructure, actually kept up with the growth in the economy, and I hope that it will in future, because that's really an area where we see a tremendous need for development, to keep up with the pace of change that we're seeing in global economies, that the infrastructure on land, that kind of follows suit.
So I'm going to come back to you on this particular point, and I specifically when we think about certain parts of the world, like say the African continent. In India, you have a government that's building 30, 40 kilometers of expressways every day on land and investing in building big ports to connect to the world. But is that happening in a patchy manner across different parts of the world? And I want you to think about it, especially once you have this new hunt for new metals and new minerals and rare earth and supply chains, and I'm going to come back to you on that. But let me ask you one follow-up question. What are the new opportunities that is driving this sector? And you spoke about the challenges for sure, but what are the new opportunities that are exciting this sector today?
For me, there are 2 tremendous opportunities. One relates to the green transition, which is also shipping and logistics' biggest challenge, but it's also its greatest opportunity. And there are many, many countries that stand to benefit from this transition. I hope we can come back to that. I think the other side is on the digitalization side of things. Digitalization, automation presents a huge opportunity. Now, in some countries, that's quite controversial, because does it come at the cost of labor? But I think it's worth looking at as an opportunity, and opportunities for better, higher paying jobs in the future that will be part of a sort of an opportunity pathway, no matter where a country sits in the.
So green transitions and technology, 2 big opportunities. Let me now turn to Minister Timmermans from the Netherlands. You've heard Johanna, you heard the previous speakers. Let me ask you, sir, what are the priorities for Netherlands in today's maritime architecture, maritime landscape? And in some sense, maybe let me also ask you, how is Netherlands positioning itself in this new rubric of the Indo-Pacific and the Mid-Atlantic, or the Euro-Atlantic framework? How is Netherlands, which has been a pioneer and maybe perhaps a leader in defining the oceans of the past, how is Netherlands thinking about the oceans of the future?
Yeah, good question, and thank you for the question. Let me also point out that we are focusing on different types of modes of transportation and the interconnectivity with it. We only have so much space in the ports, in the harbors, and before you know it, you have everything on a road infrastructure, for example. When we have a right balance between the different modes of transportation, and I even also think that pipeline transportation, road transportation, railroad transportation, inland waterway, but also another modality would be data. So I think that's a very important aspect. We're focusing on, almost everything, but I would like to see a little bit more attention for inland waterway transportation and for railroad transportation. Also from a sustainability point of view, Also looking at the amount of energy infrastructure in road would take, but also looking at the big cities that form by the port. We don't have the infrastructure to put everything on that road system, even if we green road transportation altogether. From a data point of view, I also see there are not always the same interconnectivities between these transports modes. So how can we, with a digital world of today, for example, your export permits, your import permits, but also your intermodality. So we have now a couple of projects in place to make it easier for shippers to select their mode of transport. It doesn't really matter. You always have the right documentation with you. So I think that is something that we are looking into. Your last question with the Indo part is also, I think, the fuel of the future. And who knows what the fuel of the future will be. From an industry point of view, we're talking about hydrogen for the last 10 years. Will it speed up at the rate that we're doing? But what about methanol for your ships? What about ammonia? We see from an IMO point of view, and we are at the verge of building many new vessels. If you look at your growth rate of India, what kind of transportation fuel will you be selecting? What is also a good feedstock from a resilience point of view? Is it green hydrogen right away, or do we go with gray hydrogen, for example, in the medium time? So we need infrastructure from the ports, hydrogen, we need electricity. Will we import hydrogen from the Middle East, or will we get it from the North Sea by wind? Then we need electrolyzers. So there are still many questions. We're focusing on a couple of things because I think focus is necessary if you want to be good at something. You can't do everything. So these are a couple of the highlights that we're focusing on, but I don't have the silver bullet just yet. We'll find out what type of fuel will be leading the big ocean liners of tomorrow.
Okay, so you've spoken about fuels, you've touched on technology and the changes that are rapidly allowing us to be far more efficient in our logistics arrangements and connectivity arrangements. What about geographies, new geographies? And in some sense, the 2/3 of global growth is now located in the global south. And in some sense, is Netherlands looking at a new partnership landscape? And are you now in a new moment where you will have to have a different set of close relationships to pursue what you've always done through the centuries?
True. We are looking into India as a focus point. Parliament has said, go look into India as a priority. Also looking at the growth that we see here, but also from the point of view that at this moment, the world is a different landscape than 2 years ago. So we have all sorts of tariffs. So we're spreading our assets at this moment, and India is on the top of our list to look for partnerships. So we have shipbuilding companies already onshore here in India. We have the universities, the know-how, and how can we cooperate these two worlds? How can we connect these two worlds together? The partnership is at this moment the focus on India as a country that's actually named to go after together.
And you know, my final thought for you, and I'm going to come back to this, is that if shipping and shipbuilding and dockyards were traditionally the domain of young people, how are some of these big businesses in Europe especially going to manage with the need for these young people on the one hand, and of course the big questions of immigration that all of us today confront in our countries, irrespective of where you live, on the other hand. So how do you balance the influx of talent and human capital against the backdrop of the political world that we stay in? I'm going to come back to you in a bit. I'm going to leave that question with you. Let me turn to Minister Marianne Sivertsen-Næss, and thank you for being here. And I'm especially delighted that Norway and Netherlands both have been partners since we gave birth to Sagarmanthan. So in some sense, this is your conference, and we hope that with both your countries we will continue to grow this. But ma'am, let me ask you that question. What is the big shipping maritime opportunity and of course the emerging challenge that Norway assesses?
First of all, I would just say that it's so nice to be here. It's my third time in India, and I really love to be back. And when it comes to your question, I would like to start talking about people, because I think that's, as you said, human capital is maybe the most important thing. And for us, we see that if we are going to continue to be in the forefront when it comes to the maritime sector, we have to be sure that we have the right skills and we are succeeding when it comes to recruitment and retaining people. And as we see it, this is the key for to have a safe and efficient shipping operations. And as we have been talking about a green transition and digitalization, so we both need to make sure that we have the right skills for the new, the competence that is increasing now because of the rapid technological developments. But also at the same time, we have to make sure that we keep and develop the traditional maritime expertise. So I think people with the right skills and the human capital will be one of the maybe emerging challenges that everyone is talking about, that they need the right people. And I would also like to point on another thing, that is emerging challenges, and that is we all know how important the maritime sector is. And in the world as we see it today, I would say that the importance is even more, maybe, how to say it? It's even more important now because the geopolitical issues and how things are changing. So we have to make sure that we are aware of the threats that are in front of us, like sabotage, espionage, cyber attacks. That is also one of the things that we have to make sure. So from the Norwegian government, we have implemented several regulatory and operational measures to make sure that we are prepared for new challenges, I would say, and new threats. And also how to make sure that we have more maritime surveillance and oversight, and secure the port security has to be strengthened. And also when it comes to cyber security. So there are challenging times, and we have to make sure that we are prepared for both the needs when it comes to competence, but also the threats and the security aspects. And of course, being ready for the green transition and digitalization to succeed there.
I think Norway has done a yeoman job for the world in its peace-building efforts in different parts of the world. I think now it's time for building peace on the seas. And in some sense, it's with non-state and many other threats that are emerging. So, and that's just a thought that perhaps we need to think about peace on the seas as a project for the future. And how do we build that? But Minister, we also heard from Johanna very briefly, and I'm going to come back to her in this next round. But from you especially, because Norway has been a champion of sustainability, climate, and a blue economy from years ago. I remember when we hosted the Raisina Dialogue in 2018, we had your Prime Minister who spoke about this and created a partnership between Norway and India on oceans. How is climate and the real changes we are witnessing already, and of course the much wider ecological the system that is being stressed today, going to be factored into what is going to be perhaps one of the most explosive growth stages in Asia, Africa, and many parts of the world?
Yeah. Climate change, I think that's something most of us already feel, and we can see it both here in Mumbai and also in the high north where I live in Hammerfest. It's almost as far you can come, and we can see climate change, how this impacts our lives. So of course we have to be ambitious, and for the Norwegian government we have ambitions that we have to cut emissions from domestic shipping and fisheries in half by 2030 compared to 2005. And in Norway, when it comes to the climate policy, it is the polluter pays principles. That is how we manage our climate policy. And to make sure that we can work together with the industry and the organizations, we have in December 2024 established what we call the Maritime Climate Partnership. That is the industry organizations in shipping and fisheries are together with the government, have a platform for dialogue where we can both identify the barriers, but also the solutions. So I believe in working together, setting targets, but also work together with the organization in the industry to see how we together can manage to reach our goals. And also, of course, for Norway, it was, I have to say, disappointed when the IMO Net Zero framework didn't go through. It's paused for a year, and we will continue to work through and support a stricter international regulation, because I believe that we have to work together across borders, across nations, to make sure that we build a global market for low and zero emission solutions. Because without a global market, I think it's going to be hard for one country to succeed by itself. So, and also for the industry, it's much more harder to make sure that they plan investments, because there is no global or international regulation that is supporting this. So I think this is slowing down the pace as we see it, the green transition. So hopefully this is just a pause for a year, and we will work through these international regulations through the IMO Net Zero framework to make it more clarity. So in a year that will be on track
Minister,
again.
Norway is one of the countries India has recently entered into a free trade agreement with. If that's the right term, but I think that's the fashionable term to use. But we have a trade agreement now with Norway. We are hoping that there will be billions of dollars of additional flows resulting from it. Who's going to carry those flows? Where are the ships? Are you investing in building the ships of the future? Because you heard the Joint Secretary speak about the ambition of building up our fleet. So maybe your thoughts on that.
Yes, first of all, I'm very happy for the free trade agreement, and I think there will be a lot of opportunities when it comes to trade between India and Norway. And when it comes to shipping, I think today, as we speak, there are 14 ships that is being built in India from Norwegian ship owners, and I think it's also 14.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's about 10% actually of the ships being built abroad at the moment. So, and I know there are a lot of interest to look into how we can develop this collaboration also.
That's good. That's great news. So because I think port-led growth, and I think the shipping sector could be really the big economic transformations that we witness in India in the coming days. But I'm going to come back to you, Minister, but let me turn to Minister Karunathilaka from Sri Lanka, probably a country that sits in the most strategic location of current and future growth of global trade. And your importance as a hub, both transit as well as transshipment, really positions you as a very important actor in this region. And maybe how is your government and how does Sri Lanka look at the broader maritime sector to transform its economy in the future?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, let me say that Sri Lanka is very happy to be a part of this Sagarmanthan 2025. As you said, that Sri Lanka is strategically located along with the main east-west maritime routes. It's a trade route in the Indo-Pacific maritime line. So we want to capitalize this geographical advantage. So basically we know in our focus is mainly at the moment is to enhance the capacity of our ports, especially in using the capacity and the efficiency. For that we need the automation and also especially better cargo management and so on. And also one area we are focusing at the moment is again using the geographical advantage to develop Sri Lanka as a regional bunkering energy hub. So that is with the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, our energy sector. Together with in collaboration with the Sri Lanka Port Authority, we are designing with the guidance of relevant ministries, we are designing a comprehensive development plan to enhance bunkering capabilities in Colombo, Trincomalee and Hambantota. That's the three main harbors in Sri Lanka. So let me elaborate a little more about this. At present, the Colombo has reasonable fuel storage capacity, but we want to expand its loading and refueling operation. And also, in Trincomalee, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is undertake a tank farm and with the jetty development. Recently, Trincomalee Petroleum Terminal Limited, that is one sister organization under CPC, is in the process of evaluating the expressions of interest for a tank farm development in Trincomalee. And also, in addition to that, Sri Lanka, India, and United Arab Emirates have signed a memorandum of understanding to jointly develop Trincomalee as an energy hub with plans to establish tri-party petroleum trading company. That's how we use the geographical situation in Sri Lanka to transform this Sri Lanka as an energy hub. And also in Hambantota, we are in together with Sri Lanka Ceylon Petroleum Corporation with Sinopec. We have kind of understanding, develop again bunkering.
Okay, but sir, you mentioned that you want to be this energy hub for the region.
Yes.
You have entered into a tripartite agreement between UAE and India. You mentioned Sinopec. Where are the new partnerships and sources of funds and finance that could actually catalyze many of these ambitions into projects? Who are the folks you are turning to in this world where everyone wants to build their own country? Everyone wants to build America again, build India again. Everyone wants to build again, right? So how does the developing world partner and create partnerships in a world where even the developed world wants to reindustrialize or actually turn to some of the last century imperatives?
Yes. Actually, the country like mine need a partnership for several reasons, like for the investment and technology, and also operational expertise. So we are looking for the partnership for all these three areas. Whoever the possible opportunities. So we are looking for all these areas, the partnership. So no matter, I mean, we don't have any specific interested partners, but
You're open for business.
sorry,
Exactly.
we are open for all, but we know that with the geopolitical situation, we don't want to embarrass any other country especially in this region.
Difficult times.
Yes.
But you're open for business, and I think that's important. Final question to you, sir, in this round before I come back to you in the next one. It's also, Sri Lanka is also called the Emerald Isle. Now, with all the massive plans that you have,
yes,
there is also a climate and sustainability imperative, right? You have a big tourism industry. You have actually fashioned yourself as a destination now for beaches and coastal and hills and various landscapes that Sri Lanka offers. How do you cater to that even as you build this whole new architecture for becoming a regional shipping and energy hub?
Yes. As you said, that Sri Lanka has a very good potential for tourism. And also when it comes to maritime field, so we are looking for the opportunities in especially cruise shipment. So especially in down south ports like Goal, so we have these opportunities. So we are looking for, again, we need the partnerships to enhance these capabilities, enhance these potential into trade. Yeah.
Excellent. Joanna, let me turn to you, and you wanted to come back on the climate point. But I want to ask you actually a series of questions. One, of course, green growth and the green transition, which is something that you are, which you mentioned. But I also really want to understand the supply chain question that I asked you. That is the fascination for big infrastructure distracting from connecting many of the economic centers within big, large land masses, like, Africa, for example. It's easier to travel from African countries to other continents than within the continent itself. It's easier to move goods to distant locations than within the continent. Who is going to connect the economic centers in the hinterlands to the economic opportunities in the coastal cities?
Ooh, that's a big question. I have, if I may though, may I diverge briefly from your questions to build on
Yeah,
the point
please,
that the minister just made, which is sort of interesting. So I'm the only not minister on this panel, so I'm in a better position to offend others. So, I think one thing that's interesting in this idea of building partnerships is that even the US knows that building a shipbuilding sector is not something that they're going to achieve in the next 2, 3, or 5 years indeed. So instead what they're doing is they're trying to partner, for example, with South Korea, right? So they're building partnerships as well. I think that's an opportunity. And that's an opportunity not just for the US, but for many, many other countries to see, look, we can play a role as a partner to other, so we can build coalitions, right? So I just wanted to leave that on the table. With regards to
No, by the way,
yeah.
that is something we discussed last year at the Sagarmanthan, that, India had less than 500 long-range large vessels. Guess what? The US had less than 100. So India had less than 500, US had less than 100. And literally, democratic free trade was moving on authoritarian vessels over the next couple of decades. That's the projection we are facing. So the fact really is that you will have to come together if you want to diversify the fleet and prevent people from having a ability to weaponize the fleets. So in that sense, you will have to bring diversity and partnerships and coalitions into it.
Exactly, and so these coalitions, I think, they are not just for shipbuilding, but they're also useful for the green transition. Now, the question you asked me before, that's a really hard one. How do you connect it to the hinterland, and how do you make those opportunities accessible for others? Maybe one specific example that comes to mind is that that is actually something that the minister from the Netherlands mentioned, is that the inland waterways are a tremendous opportunity. And last week I had the privilege to be in Antwerp. We hosted an event there ourselves, the Global Maritime Forum's annual summit. But there was also a locally hosted event by 2 Belgian shipping companies, or maritime companies, the Port of Antwerp and a shipping company there. And it was focused on Africa. And one of the things that they looked at was this exact question. And they focused on the role of the inland waterways. And they brought specific examples, for example, how the port of Cotonou had developed as a sort of a significant trade hub in Western Africa, and that the way it had developed was, amongst other things, because it was not only developing its routes to further to the south and to the north, but rather looking at how can it connect the coastal area along West Africa as well as to inland waterways. So it really looking at it holistically and seeing how can we tie investments that bring goods to the north and to the south, connected to big markets in southern Africa as well as to Europe. It actually also looked at how can we develop our domestic shipping. And so I found that quite attractive, and there are several Belgian shipping companies that were investing in that specifically, right? So that's quite an interesting example that that's possible.
Okay. On the green transitions part, your favorite theme?
Yes, my favorite topic, because that's something we work on a lot. Also an imperative for the sector,
Correct.
frankly. So there we go. So I share the disappointment around the deferral of the delay of the decision at the International Maritime Organization 2 weeks ago. But I do see at our own event last week and discussions that we have with many leaders in the sector, the commitment to an international framework remains strong. The commitment amongst first movers is completely steadfast. They are committed to the cause, right? They're committed to this transition and they can see the opportunities. What I would hope that would also, especially those in the room here today, see is the opportunity that this entails. And in fact, it's connected to the point that you made just before. We are going to see tremendous investment into countries across, for example, the African continent. We're seeing it already now. From Morocco in the north to Namibia in the south, the green transition for shipping, but for other heavy industrial sectors, is a huge opportunity for many, many countries around the world to be able to become become energy exporters, and as such become hubs for the export of energy. That also means connecting infrastructure inland to the seaborne infrastructure and to seaborne trade. So I think there's a really nice way of thinking about these opportunities going hand in hand. So not just energy transition, but economic development going hand in hand.
You know, you seem to be hosting a very exciting conference, and I think we need a Sagarmanthan and your conference connectivity as well. We should be having some fun together. But let me now acknowledge the Minister of Shipping here. He's just joined us this evening. Welcome, sir. We are going to have another 15 to 20 minutes of conversations, and then going to request you. So as we move to the next round, I had left certain. I can see you had a couple of interventions you want to make, but I also had a question for you to come back to. So maybe we'll start with you, Minister Timmins.
Yes. Shall I start with the intervention or with the question you left me with? From the IMO point of view, it's good that we come from a level playing field. So it's a postponement, but let's stick together on this, on that route. Otherwise, we at this moment have the CO2 emissions for shipping is approximately 2% of the global emissions, but it will increase to two-digit numbers if we don't act on anything. So that's when the methanol, the ammonia, all types of alternative fuels would come in. But let's stick together on this, and I'm sure we're going to sort things out. The second is the question that you left me with is from the human capital point of view, the recruitment. And that's where we see, for example, I think one of the largest shipping and transport colleges that we have in the hometown of Rotterdam, and I'm a marine officer by trade. What we see now is that we have only 50% of the students versus 4 years ago. So there's a decline, and we also see that we're still looking into a lower education, a middle education, and a higher education. I think that is a history that's no longer applicable now. Perhaps we should look at a skills passport instead of a completed diploma, that we have certain skills where if you're not fluent in a certain language, but you do have the skills, you can still have that passport. So that employers look at you from what type of skills do you have versus what type of completed diploma do you have. An example would be, if you wanted to be a seagoing pilot in the Netherlands, you need to have a university level degree for the merchant navy. We have now put that in a different category if you have a lot of work experience. I think these are bridging, we're bridging the gap on a different way of recruitment. And I also believe that with just a seminar or how exciting the merchant navy is or the industry jobs are, I don't think it's going to cut it anymore. We need to focus on the jobs that we need as a society. For example, if you want to have a grant, so that means money from a government for a certain education, then certain education variants are limited in the amount. We need people in the hospital, we need people building ships, we need people working on the IT, the information technology. Why won't we focus a little bit more on that? With also our grants, and I'm not saying that somebody who would be an artist can be a technician, but you have a lot of people in between that are saying, do I want to be a social media influencer or am I going to be a technician? And I think we need to push the technician a little bit more.
No, I think you have to rebrand the technician now. I think you've made being a social media influencer, for the want of a better word, more sexy than being a technician.
Yeah, that's right.
We have to rebrand building a ship in a manner that attracts young people, right? So I think there's also a little bit of laziness in the industry in reaching out to a new constituency of young people. But our Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister sitting here have been talking about building a global workforce out of India. So is that India-Netherlands partnership possibility to actually train the fleets for the future, or the technicians for the future, or the dock workers and yard workers for the future?
No, absolutely. Perhaps an example also would be, I was at Airbus in Toulouse, France, 2 weeks ago. Young professionals are being drawn to Toulouse and can have a certificate within 1 or 2 or 3 years. Airbus certified mechanics, you have a job for life. Why don't we do that a little bit more? Attract people towards these businesses when we build ships, for example, or the maritime cluster here in India, that we also have a university eco-cluster. And that we get people towards that, make it sexier, if that's the right word, but make it a bigger brand. But it goes two ways. We have, at this moment, a shortage in staff, but we do have the expertise for certain things. So how can we bring these worlds together? I think that would be the next step.
Excellent. Minister Ness.
And I just want to add to that we also have to make sure that we are looking at both genders when it comes to recruitment, because as it is by now, for Norway, for instance, we are quite good overall when it comes to the gender equality, etc. But when it comes to the maritime sector, I think there's only 11% that are women in the maritime sector. So we have a huge job to do when it comes to make sure that the women can both be recruited and also like have working conditions that are fit for them, free for harassments and yeah. So that's also why one of the reasons why the Norwegian government has a strategy that we are working together with the industry to make sure that we have our targets and we have these things we are doing, like role models, like the environment, equipment, etc. It has to be fitted for women as well. And we're also having annual meetings to make sure that we also are having some kind of development, that we are going the way forward together. So that is one thing. So yeah, I think it's very important. Also, it's what you said about thinking different when it comes to education, to make sure that you can go the smallest steps. You don't have to go all the way before you are qualified, but you can do like certifications and qualify step by step. I think that is also something we have to look more into.
Minister, we spoke about the rules-based order or the lack of it. We spoke about the geopolitical turmoil and a complete revamping of the global partnership landscape. In your view, and this is the leading question, okay? In your view, which countries are most aligned to your priorities for the future?
You know, Norway is always looking for other maritime nations to collaborate with. And we are always, looking for, at the moment, India is a very interesting country. So, of course, but we have bilateral agreements, we have like maritime cooperation agreements, we have MOUs and free trade agreements as we have between Norway and India. And we will continue to seek collaboration, both nation to nation, but also company to company, industry to industry, to make sure that we reach our targets.
Thank you. Jonna, you wanted to come in very quickly with
I wanted
something.
to come very briefly. Actually, the minister made my point for me, but maybe what I could add to this of bringing more women into the sector is that one of the things that I've found so encouraging about the Vision 47 that was developed here by the ministry is that it actually included targets for women seafarers and attracting more women to the sector. So perhaps there's a partnership possibility there between India and Norway as well.
Excellent. So. Minister, final thoughts with you on this panel. Especially my question would be on how do we connect the region more deeply?
Yeah, of course. Nowadays, especially maritime and trade and logistics it's a collaboration rather than competition. So therefore, we have to move with the rapid development in the region, especially India. This is maritime sector is rapidly developed. So we to go with this movement. So we have to enhance our capacities in our port. So for that we are looking for the partnership, as I said, like technology, management and operational expertise especially. So we are looking for to move forward with this rapid movement in the region. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that brings us to the end of this session. I'm going to turn it to my colleague Anusha, but let me just think of the 4 or 5 words that were used often. One was climate and sustainability, and I think that's a focus. Second was skilling, education and workforce. I think again a big area. Third was automation and technology and AI and disruptive opportunities that are emerging. That was used often. Collaborations, partnerships, and being open to business was again something we heard through the panel. But most importantly, I think what we heard today was that in spite of all that is happening around us, there's an opportunity like never before to connect more deeply, to connect with greater purpose, and to help lift many folks with many aspirations around the world. Please join me in applauding this wonderful panel for their interventions this evening. And Anusha, can I turn to you to lead us for the rest of this evening?
Thank you so much, sir.